Do you know Lake Elsinore Raceway? Lake Elsinore Raceway is located in Lake Elsinore, California, the beautiful city of Lake Elsinore. They had a really great track there. It was above, I think it was Main Street, right? It was Main Street going up the hill, and they had a cool MX track, and it was really a nice place. But first, we're going to celebrate. We have 2,000 videos on the channel. So today I woke up and I checked my email and I have 2,000. They congratulated me with 2,000 videos. Woo, party, party. So if you want to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, if you get value out of racing and motorcycles, we appreciate you and we appreciate you subscribing if you like the channel. And we're going to bring you more live streams. We got a whole bunch of really cool guests coming on of motorsports of all different kinds of venues. So we're going to have some live streams of some really great guests and you won't want to miss that. So subscribe, ring that bell, and watch this channel because we're gonna do some cool stuff. We have our first comment here. Who is that from? Oh, not yet. Not yet. Soon. But let's talk about Lake Elsinore Raceway. And Lake Elsinore Raceway was really back in the day and before the I-15 freeway, you'd have to get off at Main Street in Corona. You know, the Main Street where the Del Taco is. You get off there from Orange County and you turn right and then you just go. It seems like 100 miles, 100 miles to Lake Elsinore. Now you can take the I-15 freeway and it's easy, right? It just get off and but I think there's no more racetrack, so it's not easy that way. But in the old days, we get off and have some food at Del Taco there. It's been there forever. And then we go ahead and we would take that road. It would be like an hour or more all the way to Lake Elsinore, and then you turn left at that 74 or something, and then you'd go all the way to the racetrack. But anyways, the racetrack was really cool. I think it's closed now. They went ahead and they put homes or something there now. But they used to have a neat racetrack. They had motocross. Maybe they had some TT track. It was kind of a small racetrack, the Raceway of Lake Elsinore. It was not as big as Saddleback or let's say Escape Country, Carlsbad. I don't think it was that big. It was just a kind of a small practice track raceway. It was very nice as well. But anyways, you take that you take that road to the track, and then I think it wasn't very much to get in, and they had a small speedway track, probably the size of Costa Mesa. We used to go practice. I started racing back at about the last couple weeks of the 75 racing season. I was one of my first D3 races was with Dennis Siggy Sagalos, and he went on to become famous and so, anyways, after the first few races, I just bought a speedway bike and I wanted to race. I didn't have any gloves or anything. I just went ahead and raced, and I didn't do particularly that well, but a few people saw me and said, this guy, he's got some energy to him. He doesn't know how to ride a bike very well, but he's got a lot of energy. And I had that. And Jerry Fairchild, the sponsor, he was one of the greatest tuners of that day. He noticed me. I was riding a JAP, and he went ahead and said, "I'm going to help you, okay?" And I said, "Okay, Jerry." And then during the off season, I went ahead and I was practicing at Ken Maley's. Do you know Ken Maley? He was probably one of the most popular guys in the motorsports industry at that time. He does the hot shoes. Ken, he watched me ride and he said, Brian, you have some ability. However, you need coaching. You need coaching. And I desperately needed coaching. And he told me, I can get Doug Farrell, who just got number 2 in the national championship that year. Mike Bass won it again. And he said, I can get Doug Farrell for like 2 days for like $300. Do you want to like, have Doug Farrell come and teach you how to ride Speedway? And I'm like, sure. I went ahead and got $300 and gave it to Ken Maley, which he probably gave part of that to Dub. And he taught me how to ride. And so that off season, all I do is go to Lake Elsinore and I would practice, practice, practice. What do they say about motorcycles? Like practice makes perfect. No, practice makes good. There's no such thing as really being perfect. However, if you practice at anything, whether it's motocross, a flat track, speedway, anything, supercross, you become better. And practicing is the key to anything. And that's why it's sad that a lot of these tracks are closing, right? Because a lot of people can't practice. However, the Lake Elsinore track was a great practice track. And all I did for that whole off season, I think I went like either Saturday or Sunday. I didn't go 2 days because that was probably too much. But once a week during the weekend, I would go out to Lake Elsinore, and it was the size of Costa Mesa. And it was groomed, sometimes nice, sometimes it wasn't groomed. But it was a fun track anyways. And if you haven't rode that track, that speedway track in Lake Elsinore, you definitely missed it. The motocross track looked pretty fun too, but I didn't really ride the motocross. But so I just went ahead and spent that whole off season practicing, practicing everything that Doug Farrell taught me. He taught me a lot. Doug Farrell's a good writer, and he was really just, I mean, the guy just knows everything about Speedway. So I absorbed everything like a sponge because who am I? And the best thing as writers to do is to learn when you don't really know how to race because you don't have bad habits. I wanted to just practice the good habits that Dub taught me. I didn't have to unlearn bad habits. Like some of the motocross riders, they have different kinds of habits of jumping and stuff like that. But as a speedway rider, it's a lot different. Than motocross or flat track. Flat track, you sit on the seat and all this kind of stuff. But speedway, you get up there and you ride it, aggressively high. You get out your butt off the seat. That was one of my problems. I had my butt on the seat, but we won't get into that. Maybe another video. However, that practice track really was great at Lake Elsinore, and it taught me a lot. And it was really just an amazing track. And every weekend I'd practice, like one weekend I'd practice my starts. I would just spend all day practicing my starts. That's all I did. And then the next day I would practice like racing somebody. I would like look at all these different guys, mostly D2 riders, but a few D-run riders came out and I went ahead and just practiced my starts. And then with racing, I just practiced going in the first turn over and over and over. In speedway, going to that first turn, getting to that first turn is one of the most important things to racing a speedway bike. So that's all I did was practice, practice going to that first turn. And then I would do that, and then I would practice being in the turns. My style, I would say like, how do you want to ride? And I practice different styles. I would try different things and see what worked best for me. And then one time I would have one of my high school mates, he came over and I brought these cones for like construction. And I told this guy, when I'm in the turn, I want you to throw these cones at me. I want to see these cones like other racers coming at me, and I want to use my reflexes, and I want to like dodge these cones because these cones are like danger. And I want to see things flying at me, and I want to be able to stop the bike, move the bike, put the bike wherever I want to. I want to be able to control that speedway bike. Riding a motorcycle is great, but you got to control that bike. And that's one of the things that I had to learn or learned is how to really own that bike so that you can make it do on a drop of a dime what you want that bike to do. And that's exactly what I did at Lake Elsinore. I was able to practice and learn these things. And one time I brought my friend, his uncle was Ernie Rocio, the great Ernie Rocio, who passed away in England in 1952. He was one of the great American racers. He was number one in points going into the World Championship. He died before that World Championship, which is really sad. And the year before, in 1951, he got 16th or 15th place, but he was injured. He couldn't even walk, and he still rode. He got a point or two, but he was severely injured. But the next year, he came back strong and was leading the points for the World Championship. And then he died before the World Championship, which was very sad. But Ernie Rocio had I guess his nephew or something was named Ernie Rocio. That's his brother's son, Johnny's son, Ernie. And Ernie had, he had the only one of the only lay down JAPs, and it's in a museum and it's in shows right now as far as people can see it. And Jerry Fairchild gave that JAP to Ernie Rocio and let him ride it. And it was very difficult to ride. Scott Autry, he rode that JAP, and I rode that JAP, and it's very difficult to ride. It's almost impossible. And if Scott Autry can't ride that JAP, that's a difficult bike to ride. And I couldn't ride it either. And Ernie, I don't think could ride it very well, but he rode it better than me and probably Scott Autry. But there's one time he hooked up on that JAP and that Jerry Fairchild built, and at Lake Elsinore they had one side that was a mountain, and then they had the other side that was like they made a mountain of dirt about I don't know about a meter or so or a meter and a half high, and then at the top of that mountain it dropped off into the road, which is about 3 or 4 meters, and it was quite the drop. You don't want to go off that thing, or you can really hurt yourself at Lake Elsinore. And one time Ernie was riding his lay down JAP, which is in a museum now. It's no longer in riding, and it hooked up the JAP, and the JAP went straight into that wall. And I'm like, oh my gosh! I was watching because Ernie and I were kind of like buddies, and we go practicing and racing together. He's a cool guy. And Ernie went over that meter and a half, 2 meter wall, and he went flying over to 3 or 4 meters down. And I'm like looking down, like, Ernie, are you okay? And he's like, oh, my collarbone. He broke his collarbone at that track. And that was really a bad fall. And, I was able to see lots of racers fall at that track. And I saw Scott Reed fall at that track, and many riders would fall. I probably fell at that track, who knows? And but I learned a lot at Lake Elsinore, and it was a great experience. We never had organized racing as per se, like as in a race venue, but it was a good practice track. And these days practicing is very important, even for good riders. It's just good to race, to practice. They have races now. Steve Evans has races during the off season. These are golden opportunities for guys to practice and to race as well. So racing is very important, and having that seat time is valuable. And Lake Elsinore provided that seat time, and it was a great track. And like I say, it's probably closed because of the different stuff going on, building houses and things. But it was a fun track. And if you missed the Lake Elsinore, which many of you might have done, you missed a really great track. And like I said, they had motocross as well. And there's a lot of motocross riders practicing over there. And it was a great venue. So if you missed that track, you missed a fun track, Lake Elsinore. But thanks for hanging out with us today, talking about Lake Elsinore in the beautiful city of Lake Elsinore, kind of up in the mountains. I think it was Main Street or something like that. I forgot there was highways. I think it was Main Street going into the hills. You turn left. If you go Main Street right, you go into the city of Lake Elsinore. And you go left, you go into the mountains. And that's exactly where the racetrack was. But it was a great track. I learned a lot. I went to Division 1 that following year. That It really developed me, became a good rider. I won like 6 handicap main events. I think I won main events at almost every track there was at that time, and had some great races against some great riders, much better than I was. And so that Lake Elsinore was really a dream come true for me, and it taught me a lot. And I was able to develop quite substantially. That was my first full season in Division One, and I went to Division One my first full season, which was really great. After about 5 weeks or so, I progressed, or a few weeks, I should say. But that track in Lake Elsinore prepared me to go to Division One, and it was really, really great. But thank you so much for hanging out with us today in the hive, in the hive. And we're going to do more live streams. We have some great guests coming up, so you won't want to miss that. Like I say, subscribe, like the shows. It's really cool, and we appreciate you for hanging out with us. And we're trying to talk about motorcycles and all kinds of venues too, not only Speedway. So we really appreciate you. We did a saddleback a video I guess it was yesterday, and we talked about Saddleback, such a great place to ride. So many great riders developed and raced there. And many of you have commented you raced there as well. So it's just great to get out there. And too bad we don't have all these tracks these days. That really sucks. I live in the Philippines now, and I have jungles, I have mountains, I have beaches. I ride every day on my CRF in Husqvarna, and I ride the street, I ride the dirt. I ride everywhere. You know, riding in the jungle is a lot of fun. It's really crazy. But the mountains are cool. The beach is wild. It's a great time. So I wish they had that in California these days. You know, as much riding places. That would be really fantastic. And we hope there is more in the future. But Lake Elsinore was great, good place to practice, a good place to develop. I have fond memories of Lake Elsinore because it helped me go to Division One, and that was just a huge, huge help. Without that, I would not have progressed at all. But thanks for hanging out with us today in the Hive, talking about Lake Elsinore Raceway, which is no longer there. I think there's houses there now. But thanks again, and we're going to talk to you next time. Take care. Have a great day.